Somewhere between survival and surrender, there is a moment that has been reported by thousands of people across thousands of years. A moment when, at the very edge of death, you are no longer alone. Not because someone arrived, not because you called out, but because something woke up. Explorers have felt it on Himalayan ridgelines, divers have felt it in Blackwater caves, soldiers have felt it in the wreckage of war. Climbers, stranded, sailors, adrift, crash survivors, crawling from wreckage with a voice in their ear that said, "Keep going." This phenomenon has a name, the third man factor. And once you understand what it actually is, not just psychologically, but architecturally, you will never see your own mind the same way again. The year is 1914. Ernest Shackleton and two companions are crossing South Georgia Island on foot. No map, no gear, no margin for error. They are surviving on will alone, and then, without explanation, all three of them feel it. A fourth presence, walking beside them, silent, calm, guiding. When they finally reached safety, Shackleton didn't dismiss it. He wrote about it. He told others. And every man with him confirmed there had been someone else there. 8 years later, a poet named T.S. Eliot read Shackleton's account and couldn't let it go. He folded it into The Wasteland, one of the most consequential poems of the 20th century, writing, "Who is the third who walks always beside you?" For decades, the experience remained anecdotal, a curiosity, a ghost story for explorers, until researcher John Geiger documented hundreds of identical accounts across history. Survivors from every culture, every era, every kind of extreme, and gave the phenomenon its formal name, the third man factor. Science stepped in, as science does, and its answers are not wrong. They are simply incomplete. Neurologists pointed to temporal lobe activation under extreme stress, the same region associated with religious experience, déjà vu, and the felt sense of presence. Psychologists offered ego dissociation. The mind fractures under pressure and generates a companion self to distribute the cognitive load of survival. Evolutionary theorists suggested it is an adaptive hallucination, the brain running out of options, manufacturing a guide because the organism cannot afford to give up. Each of these explanations is internally consistent. Each captures a piece, but none of them answer the question that survivors consistently ask. Why did it know things I didn't know? The presence doesn't just comfort, it navigates. It tells you which way to turn, which rope to grab, when to stop, when to run. It carries information that the panicking, oxygen-deprived, traumatized brain, by any reasonable measure, should not have access to. That is the anomaly science cannot explain away. And that is exactly where the metaphysics begins. To understand what the third man factor actually is, you need one foundational premise. And once you accept it, even provisionally, everything changes. Here it is. Time does not flow. This is not a metaphor. This is what modern physics, specifically Einsteinian relativity and the block universe model, actually tells us. All moments, past, present, and future, exist simultaneously. They are not events that happen and then disappear. They are fixed coordinates in a four-dimensional structure, like frames of a film that already exists in its entirety. You are not a person moving through time. You are a point of awareness moving through a pre-written data set. In this architecture, your past self is still alive at its coordinate. Your future self already exists at its coordinate. Every version of you, the one who made it and the one who didn't, occupies a fixed position in the data set. The question is not what happens. The question is which thread your awareness follows. And here is where the avatar vehicle model becomes essential. The body you inhabit, this nervous system, this personality, this name, is not who you fundamentally are. It is a vehicle. a highly sophisticated avatar interfaced with one narrow band of the dataset, and the thing operating that avatar, the thing that selects which experiences to register, which timeline to inhabit, which frame to be present in, that is consciousness. Not the brain, not the personality, the selector. Now ask the question again. Who is the third who walks always beside you? Here is what I believe the third man factor actually is. Not a hallucination, not an angel, not a random firing of a stressed temporal lobe. The third man is the selector, your own consciousness, operating from outside the avatar, reaching back through the architecture of the block universe to make contact with a version of you that is about to die. Think about what that means. Somewhere encoded in the structure of space-time is a version of you, a future you, a higher coordinate you, that already knows what happens next. That version already knows which crevasse you need to avoid, which direction leads to the ridge, which rope holds. And under conditions of extreme trauma, when the avatar's ego finally goes quiet enough, the selector can make contact. The signal gets through. This explains everything the psychological models cannot. Why the presence knows things you don't know. Because it is you operating from a more complete position in the dataset. Why it is always calm. Because it is outside the crisis. It is observing the frame, not trapped inside it. Why it arrives only at the edge of death. Because that is the only moment the ego becomes quiet enough to receive the transmission. The noise of ordinary consciousness, the chatter, the planning, the identity maintenance, drowns the signal. Trauma doesn't generate the third man. Trauma clears the interference. This is not a comforting fairy tale. This is a structural description of what consciousness actually is when you remove the assumption that the self is confined to a single body at a single point in time. If the block universe is real, and the physics strongly suggests that it is, then your future self is not a fantasy. It is a coordinate. And under the right conditions, that coordinate can speak. You are not a person who has one life and then ends. You are a selector, a point of awareness, navigating a data set so vast it contains every version of every moment that has ever existed or ever will. The third man factor is not proof of the supernatural. It is proof of the architecture. Most of us will never be stranded on an Antarctic glacier. Most of us will never hang from a rope above a 1,000-foot drop. But every one of us has faced a moment where the ego ran out of answers, where the personality had nothing left, where the identity collapsed and something else had to take over. That something else is not foreign to you. It is not a guardian assigned to protect you. It is you, operating at the level where the full shape of your life is already visible. It is the selector, breaking through the noise. And if that contact is possible at the edge of death, what else is it possible at? What happens when you stop waiting for a crisis to go quiet? What happens when you learn to quiet the avatar deliberately, through stillness, through meditation, through surrendering the ego's grip on the present frame? The third man factor becomes not an emergency system, it becomes a practice. That is the frontier, not survival, navigation. You are not alone in the storm. You are never alone in the storm. Because the version of you that already made it through is already waiting on the other side. If this framework resonated with you, the block universe, the selector, the avatar vehicle model, we are building this architecture piece by piece in this series. Hit subscribe so you don't miss what comes next. And if you have experienced something like the third man factor yourself, leave it in the comments. Your data matters. Your experience is part of the record. We'll dig deeper in the next video.